Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel Vernacular Academy. अब हम शुरू कर रहे हैं लेक्चर 3 और आज हम चैप्टर 2 में एंटर करते हैं विच इज इनकॉर्पोरेशन ऑफ कंपनी एंड मैटर्स इncidental thereto. So chapter 2 is where a company actually comes into existence. It's the birth of a legal person and today's lecture memorandum of association is the birth certificate, the constitutional document, the foundational charter of every company. अगर तुम एक कंपनी के बारे में कुछ जानना चाहते हो तो पहली चीज जो तुम देखते हो वो है उसकी मेमोरेंडम. ये डॉक्यूमेंट कंपनी की आइडेंटिटी, स्कोप और लिमिट्स डिफाइन करता है. आज हम कवर करेंगे कि एमओए क्या है, क्यों जरूरी है, उसके सारे 6 क्लॉजेस एक एक करके डिटेल में देखेंगे और फिर ऑल्टरेशन का पूरा प्रोसीजर भी देखेंगे. उसके बाद होंगे आज के क्वेश्चंस. तो चलिए चलते हैं, शुरू करते हैं आज का लेक्चर. Before we begin further, let's have a quick recap of lecture 2. So the 5 takeaways from lecture 2 before we move on. These are: takeaway 1 is KMP is mandatory for listed companies and public companies with greater than or equal to 10 crore rupees of paid up capital. However, it is not for every company. Then takeaway 2 is MD and manager cannot coexist in the same company simultaneously. Takeaway 3 is officer in default has 7 subclauses. Most critical is subclause V, that is subclause part 5. A professional advisor is expressly excluded. Then takeaway 4 is financial year always ends on 31st March. However, first year of a company incorporated after 1st January can extend up to 15 months, but not more. Takeaway number 5, net worth excludes revaluation reserves, write back of depreciation reserves and amalgamation reserves because they are paper adjustments, not earned surplus. So ये recap हो गया. अब हम freshly start करते हैं अपना chapter number 2. So सबसे पहले हम देखेंगे memorandum of association, उसका meaning, purpose और supremacy. Now what is a memorandum of association? Section 2 subsection 56 defines it simply. Memorandum means the memorandum of association of a company as originally framed or as altered from time to time in pursuance of any previous company law or of this act. The bare statutory definition doesn't convey the importance. Let's go deeper. MO is called the charter or constitution of the company. It defines what the company is, its name, its registered state, what the company can do, its objects, what the liability structure is, whether it's limited by shares, guarantee or unlimited, and how much capital it can raise, which is its authorized capital. Now think of MOA as the boundary wall of a company. Inside the wall, everything is permitted. Step outside the wall, ultra-wise is there. It's void. So we'll come back to that concept very shortly. Now we'll see why did the law make MOA mandatory? ये सवाल बहुत important है because understanding the why helps you understand every rule that follows. So there are 3 reasons. One is protecting shareholders. A person buys shares in a company that makes pharmaceuticals. Can that company suddenly start manufacturing weapons? If there were no MOA, theoretically yes. MOA's objects clause ensures your investment stays in the business you intended to invest in. Second is protecting creditors. A creditor lending money to a company wants to know the scope of its business to assess risk. If the company is unrestricted, risk assessment is impossible. MOA gives creditors a bounded picture. Third is protecting public. MOA is a public document registered with the registrar, open for inspection. Any person dealing with the company can read it. They know exactly what this company is authorized to do. So MOA एक पब्लिक डॉक्यूमेंट है. आरओसी के रजिस्टर में सब देख सकते हैं. इसका मतलब जो भी कंपनी से डील करता है वो कंपनी की लिमिट्स जानता है, इसलिए एमओए इतना इंपॉर्टेंट है. सो एमओए की सुप्रीमेसी और हायरार्की के बारे में देख लेते हैं. तो एक हायरार्की जो आपको जानना चाहते हैं कि पहले आता है आपका सबसे नीचे आएंगे आपके इंटरनल अग्रीमेंट्स या रेजोल्यूशंस, देन आते हैं आर्टिकल्स ऑफ एसोसिएशन उसके ऊपर. So your internal agreements cannot override AOA, that is your article of association. उसके ऊपर आएंगे memorandum of association. So AOA cannot override MOA. Then सबसे ऊपर आ जाता है Companies Act 2013, जिसमें इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि MOA cannot override the act. So Companies Act के नीचे सबसे ऊपर आपका क्या हुआ? MOA, it has the supremacy. Immediately below the Companies Act 2013. Now MOA overrides AOA. If there is any conflict between MOA and AOA, then MOA wins always. And then Companies Act overrides MOA. If MOA contains anything contrary to the act wins. तो एक ICAI का ट्रैप देख लेते हैं. वो कहता है कि if the articles of a company give broader powers than the memorandum, the company can act within those broader powers. The answer is wrong. AOA cannot give what MOA doesn't permit. The hierarchy is absolute. आप कुछ प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चंस देख लेते हैं. तो एक 3 मार्क का डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन है, which is question number 1 of this lecture. It is, what is a memorandum of association? State its significance in relation to a company. Please everyone pause your video and write down. Meanwhile, I'll go ahead with the model answer. Now, answer is as follows. It is that as per section 2 subsection 56, memorandum means the memorandum of association of a company as originally framed or as altered from time to time. इसकी significance क्या है? कि the MOA is the charter or constitution of the company. It defines the company's identity, scope of activities, and the limits within which it can operate. It is a public document registered with the registrar. Any person dealing with the company is deemed to have notice of its contents, which is known as doctrine of constructive notice. Then it protects shareholders, ensures their investment is used only within the stated objects. Then it protects creditors. They can assess the company's risk exposure through its objects and capital structure. Then the last significance is that the acts beyond the MOA are ultra vires, which means they are void and incapable of ratification. Next, we'll see the name clause and registered office clause. The first 2 clauses of every MOA are what the company is called and where it lives. Clause number 1 is your name clause, which is defined in section 4, subsection 1 and clause A. Sorry, part A. Every company must state its name in the MOA. Rules for the name क्या होंगे? पहला है must end with the appropriate suffix. Public company, if it's a public company, then the name must end with limited. If it's a private company, name must end with private limited. If it's an OPC, must have one person company in brackets after the name. If it's a section A company, it does not need to use limited or private limited. It's an exception. Then second rule is name must not be identical or similar to an existing company. ROC maintains a register of approved names. A new company cannot take a name that is identical or deceptively similar to an already registered company. Third rule is certain words require prior approval. Using words like national, bank, insurance, stock exchange, reserve, central, government, India, Bharat, corporation requires prior approval from the concerned authorities. Example, RBI's approval for bank. Then fourth rule is name must not be offensive. So the name cannot be contrary to public policy. It cannot suggest patronage of government if there is none. Fifth rule is that ROC can require a name change. So under section 16, if ROC is satisfied that a company's name is identical or too similar to an existing company's name or misleading, then it can direct the company to change its name within 3 months of the direction. Now, why this matters so much? See, name is an identity. Allowing duplicate or misleading names would create confusion in commerce, enable fraud. For example, customers thinking that they're dealing with one company when it's another. Or they can also damage market integrity. तो सोचो अगर कोई कंपनी का नाम हो Infosys Technologies Private Limited, Infosys के इन्वेस्टर्स, कस्टमर्स सब कंफ्यूज हो जाएंगे. इसलिए ROC सिमिलर नेम्स अलाउ नहीं करता है. Clause number 2 देखते हैं, which is registered office clause. It is defined in section 4, subsection 1, part B. The state in which the registered office of the company is to be situated. Okay, this has to be done. So please note carefully. The MOA mentions only the state, not the specific address. So MOA says Rajasthan. It does not say plot 14, MG Road, Jaipur. This is an example, okay? So the specific address is communicated to the ROC separately within 30 days of incorporation or within 30 days of the company commencing business, whichever is earlier. Now, why only the state in MOA? Because changing the city address within the same state is a common business need. If the full address were in MOA, every time you shift office within Jaipur, you need to alter the MOA, which requires SR. Instead, just a notice to the ROC. Okay, the MOA records only the state, which is more stable. Now, why a registered office matters? Official address for all legal communication, court notices, government letters, ROC notices, they are given to your registered address only. Then service of notice or summons at the register office, it is also termed as valid service on the company. Then all statutory books and registers must be maintained here or their location should be disclosed. Now, एक ICI का trap देख लेते हैं. The students sometimes write the full address of the registered office is mentioned in the MOA. Wrong. MOA mentions only the state. Full address goes separately to the ROC. अब students की confusion भी देख लेते हैं. Students often ask, ma'am, what if the company doesn't intimate the ROC about its registered office address within 30 days? The company and every officer in default shall be liable to a penalty for every day of default. That is rupees 1,000 per day up to rupees 1 lakh. Additionally, service of any notice at the last known address shall still be valid. The company cannot use its own failure to update the ROC as a reason to dodge legal service. So don't confuse delayed intimation with absence of registered office. The company must have a physical registered office from day one. Next, we'll see an application-based question. This will be question number 2 for 3 marks. Megha Limited was incorporated with its registered office in Maharashtra. The company now wants to shift its registered office from Mumbai to Pune. Does the company need to alter its MOA? What procedure must it follow? So we'll move ahead with the model answer. It is the MOA records only the state in which the registered office is situated, not the specific city or address. In the given case, both Mumbai and Pune are in Maharashtra, which is the same state. Therefore, there is no change in the state and consequently no alteration of the MOA is required. Now, procedure for shifting office within the same state is, if shifting within the same city or town or village, then a board resolution is sufficient. File form INC 22 with ROC within 30 days. Then, if shifting to a different city within the same state, example Mumbai to Pune, pass a special resolution which is SR. Then intimate the ROC within 30 days by filing form INC 22. So, in short, MOA need not be altered. A special resolution suffices, followed by ROC intimation in form INC 22. Next, we'll see the objects clause. The objects clause is arguably the most litigated and most examined clause in the entire memorandum. This is where the doctrine of ultra vires lives. Give this full attention. Okay. So objects clause is contained in section 4, subsection 1, part C. The objects of the company and matters considered necessary in furtherance thereof. Okay. I'll repeat what it contains. It contains the objects of the company and matters considered necessary in furtherance thereof. Now, what must the objects clause state? The objects clause defines the scope of the company's activities, what it is allowed to do. Anything not within the objects are ultra vires, that means void. Why is the objects clause so powerful? Because it is the only protection an investor has against the company using his money for something he never agreed to. So if you invested in a software company, the objects clause ensures the company cannot suddenly start a construction business with your money. We'll see after the 2015 amendment, there was an amendment in 2015. So this is an important update that many coaching notes will still have wrong. So listen to it very carefully. Under the old Companies Act 1956, the objects clause had 3 subclauses. A, main objects. B, objects incidental or ancillary to the main objects. And C, other objects, which is anything else the company might want to do. Now, under the Companies Act 2013, which is as amended in 2015, this 3 subclause structure was abolished. Now, the MOA simply states the objects of the company. That is one category, no distinction between main and other subjects. Now, why the simplification was done? It was done because the old 3 subclause structure led to enormous litigation. Courts spent years deciding whether a particular act fell in main objects or other objects or was identical. The 2015 simplification removed this complexity. अब एक ICI का ट्रैप देख लेते हैं. Students still write under the objects clause A, main objects, B, incidental or ancillary objects, C, other objects. This is the old Companies Act 1956 structure. Under Companies Act 2013, there is just one objects clause, which is writing the old structure in a 2026 exam will lead to a wrong answer. So next we are at ultra wires. It's just an introduction part here. Full treatment we'll give it in lecture 4. In lecture 4, we'll discuss it in complete details. So just we'll take some introduction here. So any act done beyond the objects clause is ultra vires for the company. So and it is void and it cannot be ratified not by the board, not by the shareholders, not even by unanimous consent of all members. So here comes a classic case of 1875, which was the Ashbury Railway Carriage and Iron Company Limited versus Rish. The object clause of Ashbury Railway Carriage Company permitted it to make railway carriages. It entered into a contract to finance a railway construction project in Belgium, which is your beyond your objects. Then the House of Lords held that the contract is ultra vires and void. No one can enforce it, not even Rish, who had lent money. So ऑब्जेक्ट्स क्लॉज में लिखा था रेलवे कैरेजेस बनाना. बेल्जियम में रेलवे कंस्ट्रक्शन फाइनेंस करना जो था वो ऑब्जेक्ट से बाहर हो गया. सो इट मीन्स इट वाज अल्ट्रा वायर्स एंड हेंस वॉइड. रीच का पैसा अभी वापस नहीं मिला. यही है अल्ट्रा वायर्स का जो एक इसका कंक्लूजन पार्ट कि इसका कोई रैटिफिकेशन नहीं हो सकता है. सो दिस डॉक्ट्राइन प्रोटेक्ट्स इन्वेस्टर्स because shareholders know exactly what their money is for, but can sometimes be harsh on third parties. We'll deal with the full doctrine, its consequences, and the exceptions in lecture 4. So before going further, we'll take question number 3, which is for 4 marks, and it is a concept and application based question. So the question is that what is the objects clause in the memorandum of association? A company incorporated to manufacture pharmaceutical drugs entered into a contract to purchase agricultural land for farming. Is this contract valid? Give reasons. We'll go ahead with the model answer. What is objects clause? Under section 4, subsection 1, part C, the objects clause states the objects of the company and matters considered necessary in furtherance thereof. It defines the scope of business activities the company is authorized to carry on. Any act outside the objects clause is ultra vires and void. So in the given case, the company is incorporated for manufacturing pharmaceutical drugs. Purchasing agricultural land for farming is not within its stated objectives. It is beyond the objects clause and therefore ultra vires the company. So conclusion will be that the contract to purchase agricultural land is void and cannot be enforced, not by the company, not by the party from whom the land is being purchased. It cannot be ratified by shareholders even by unanimous vote. This is based on the principle established in Ashbury Railway Carriage and Iron Company Limited versus Rish case of 1875. So next comes our liability clause, capital clause and subscriber clause. So clause number 4 is liability clause. It is defined in section 4, subsection 1, part D, which says that the liability of members of the company, whether limited or unlimited, and if limited, whether limited by shares or by guarantee. So there are 3 options now. First is limited by shares, which means the liability of the shares is limited, which means the members' liability is limited to the amount unpaid on their shares. Simple. Next is limited by guarantee, which states that the amount each member guarantees to contribute at winding up. For example, each member is liable to contribute rupees 10,000 in case of winding up. Then third is unlimited, which means no liability clause needed because there is no limit to state. Why is this clause in MOA? This is because the potential members reading the MOA must know their maximum exposure before they decide to join. It is a fundamental term of the membership contract. Next, we have clause number 5, which is capital clause. It is contained in section 4, subsection 1, part E. It states the authorized share capital, which is the maximum capital the company can raise through shares. The format typically is that the share capital of the company is, suppose, rupees 10 crores divided into 1 crore equity shares of rupees 10 each. So key points to remember in this case would be that the company clause shows the authorized capital, that is the maximum. Actual issued capital can be less. And it is required only for companies having share capital and not required for companies limited by guarantee without share capital. So increasing authorized capital means alteration of the capital clause. So why does this matter? Because investors and creditors know the maximum scale of the company's capitalization. It also forms the basis for calculation of statutory fees to the ROC. Next, we'll see clause number 6, which is the subscriber clause or association clause. This is explained in section 4, subsection 1, part F. It states that we, the several persons whose names and addresses are subscribed, are desirous of being formed into a company in pursuance of this act, and we respectively agree to take the number of shares in the capital of the company set opposite our respective names. So this is where the founding members, which is the subscribers, formally express their desire to form the company and commit to taking a certain number of shares. So minimum subscribers would be, for public company there are 7 subscribers in minimum, and for private there are 2, and for OPC, that is your 1-person company, it is obviously 1 subscriber. For signature and attestation, each subscriber must sign the MOA in the presence of at least 1 witness who attests the signature. So students यहाँ पे क्या confusion कर देते हैं कि ma'am, what is the difference between authorized capital and issued capital, and why does MOA mention only authorized capital? So the answer is that the authorized capital, which is also known as the nominal capital, is the maximum capital the company is permitted to have, as stated in the capital clause of MOA. Whereas the issued capital is the portion of the authorized capital. Repeat, issued capital is the portion of the authorized capital that has actually been offered to the public or specific persons. Then subscribed capital is the portion of the issued capital that investors have actually agreed to take. And then paid up capital is the portion of subscribed capital that has actually been paid. तो समझे कि सबसे पहले ऑथराइज कैपिटल, उसका पोर्शन हो जाएगा इशूड कैपिटल, उसका पोर्शन हो जाएगा सब्सक्राइब कैपिटल, और उसका पोर्शन हो जाएगा पेड अप कैपिटल. नाउ एमओए मेंशंस ओनली ऑथराइज कैपिटल बिकॉज दैट इज द मैक्सिमम लिमिट which rarely changes. Issued, subscribed and paid up capital change constantly as your business grows. So requiring MOA alteration every time these changes would be impossibly cumbersome. So MOA has the maximum ceiling. Actual figures are disclosed in annual accounts and filing. So authorized का मतलब हुआ maximum. Issued will be less than equal to authorized. Subscribed would be less than issued, less than or equal to issued, and paid up would be less than or equal to subscribed. एक लैडर नीचे जाता रहता है. सो एमओए में सिर्फ लैडर का टॉप होता है विच इज योर ऑथराइज शेयर कैपिटल. Then we'll see another question number 4. It is for 4 marks and a direct question. So the question is that name and briefly explain all the clauses of the memorandum of association of a company limited by shares. So model answer here would be that a memorandum of association of a company limited by shares must contain the following clauses under section 4. First would be the name clause. It states the company's name ending with limited for public company or private limited for private company. Second would be the registered office clause, which states the state in which the registered office is to be situated. Third is the objects clause, which states the objects of the company and matters necessary in furtherance thereof. Fourth is the liability clause, which states that the liability of members is limited to unpaid amounts on their shares. Fifth is the capital clause, which states the amount of authorized share capital and its division into shares of fixed denomination. And sixth is the subscriber clause, which contains the names and addresses of subscribers, their desire to form the company, and their agreement to take shares. So I hope this is all clear. Next we'll go to alteration of memorandum of association. So this is contained in section 13. So now the most practical part of this lecture is that how can the MOA be altered? See, each clause has its own alteration procedure. These are heavily tested and application based questions. Now, why is MOA so difficult to alter? Because it is the charter, the promise made to shareholders, creditors, and the public at the time of formation. Altering it significantly should not be easy or casual. The law requires formal procedures to protect all stakeholders. So we'll see the alteration of name clause. It is in section 13, subsection 2. So procedure is as under that. First, we'll pass a special resolution. Then second, we'll obtain the approval of the central government, which is registrar of companies acting on behalf of the central government. Third, ROC issues a fresh certificate of incorporation with the new name. And fourth, change is effective from the date of the new certificate. Exceptions where central government approval is not needed. So exceptions क्या है यहाँ पे? First, adding or deleting the word private in the company's name when a private company converts to public or vice versa. Second exception is name changed ordered by ROC under section 16 due to technical or undesirable name. So these are the two exceptions. Now, why does name change need central government approval? Because the name is the company's public identity. Anyone who has contracted with the company, hold its debentures, or has a pending case against it needs assurance that the company has not simply renamed itself to escape recognition. Central government approval ensures scrutiny. Hence, it's necessary. Next, we see alteration of registered office clause. This is contained in section 12 and 13. So there are three scenarios, each with a different procedure. Scenario 1 is where shift is within the same city or town or village. Here only board resolution is required and you have to file intimation with ROC in form INC 22 within 30 days. Scenario 2nd is where the shift is to another place within the same state. Like we saw an example of Mumbai to Pune, both located in the state of Maharashtra only. So here a special resolution is required and then you have to file with ROC in form INC 22 within 30 days. Scenario 3rd is shift from one state to another, interstate. So here special resolution is required and then confirmation by the central government, which is your regional director's approval, obtained by filing petition. Then publication in newspapers is required, one in English and one in vernacular language of the state. Then you have to notify creditors and debenture holders and that they have no objections outstanding. And then you have to file with ROC of both old and new state. अब यहाँ पे ICI का एक ट्रैप आता है कि that student often mixed up with scenario needs central government approval. So remember, only shifting to another state needs central government, which is your regional director confirmation. Shifting within the same state, even across cities, only needs a special resolution. ध्यान रखिए, अगर सेम शहर है तो बोर्ड रेजोल्यूशन, सेम स्टेट है डिफरेंट शहर है तो स्पेशल रेजोल्यूशन, अलग स्टेट है तो स्पेशल रेजोल्यूशन प्लस सीजी दैट इज सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट और रीजनल डायरेक्टर की परमिशन. तीनों अलग हैं, कंफ्यूज मत होना. फिर नेक्स्ट हम देखते हैं कि ऑल्टरेशन ऑफ ऑब्जेक्ट्स क्लॉज विच इज कंटेन इन सेक्शन 13 सबसेक्शन 1. तो इसका प्रोसीजर क्या है वो जान लेते हैं. नंबर 1 होगा पास अ स्पेशल रेजोल्यूशन. दूसरा है फाइल फॉर्म MGT 14 विद ROC विद इन 30 डेज. तीसरा होगा ऑल्टरेशन इफेक्टिव फ्रॉम डेट ऑफ रजिस्ट्रेशन बाय ROC. Now there is also an additional requirement for listed companies that if a listed company changes its object clause and a shareholder voted against the change, that is he dissented, the company must give those dissenting shareholders an exit opportunity, that is buy back their shares at a fair value through an offer. Now why this additional protection? Because an investor bought shares because the company was in the business X. If the company suddenly changes to business Y, the investor's original investment rationale no longer holds. The exit option protects minority investors. Next, we will see the alteration of liability clause. It is contained in section 13, subsection 8 and subsection 9. So this is the most restricted alteration. Generally, a company cannot change its liability from limited to unlimited unless every member consents to it in writing. An unlimited company can change to limited by a special resolution, but existing creditors have certain protections. A company limited by guarantee cannot introduce a share capital unless specifically permitted. So why is it so restrictive? Because creditors lend to a limited company knowing members' liability is limited. If members' liability became unlimited without creditor consent, then existing creditors would be enriched unexpectedly. If limited liability was removed without every member's consent, then again it would fundamentally alter the membership contract. So both cases demand extremely high thresholds. Next, we'll see the alteration of capital clause. It is contained in section 13 read with section 61. Now, if you have to increase the authorized capital, then you have to pass the ordinary resolution unless the articles require a special resolution. File form SS7 with ROC within 30 days. But if you have to reduce authorized capital, that is your diminution, then also it is passed by ordinary resolution only. But please note that the reduction of paid up capital is different. That requires your special resolution plus NCLT approval under section 66. Now, एक ICI का trap है वो देख लेते हैं. Remember what happens in exam is that increase of authorized capital versus reduction of paid up capital, they are often confused. So increasing the authorized ceiling is equal to your ordinary resolution plus form SS7, whereas reducing actual paid up capital would need your special resolution plus NCLT. Both are very different procedures. Please remember that. तो अभी यहाँ पे ना students confusion होती है आप लोगों को स्टूडेंट्स कहते हैं कि मैम कैन द ऑब्जेक्ट्स क्लॉज बी ऑल्टर्ड टू ऐड एनी न्यू बिजनेस इवन समथिंग कंप्लीटली अनरिलेटेड टू व्हाट द कंपनी इज डूइंग नाउ. So the answer is yes. After the 2015 amendment, alteration of objects clause has been generally liberalized. It has been greatly liberalized. So there is no requirement that the new objects be related or connected to existing objects. A special resolution plus MGT 14 filing is sufficient. The old law had restrictions on how far you could alter objects, and those have been removed. A pharmaceutical company can now alter its objects to include software services by SR. However, the listed companies must still give the dissenting shareholder exit option. So that is there. Now we'll take a sample question. This is an application based question for 5 marks. The question is that Sunrise Limited is a company incorporated in Kolkata, West Bengal. Now it wants to change its name from Sunrise Limited to Bright Day Limited. That is your A. B, it wants to shift its registered office to Mumbai, Maharashtra. And C, it wants to change its objects clause to include real estate business. Advise the company on the procedure to be followed for each change. So we'll move ahead with our model answer and we'll take each change it wants to make. So first is change of name to Bright Day Limited. So under section 13 subsection 2, change of name requires first passing a special resolution and second obtaining approval of the central government, that is your ROC. Then ROC will verify that the new name is not identical or similar to an existing company and complies with naming rules. And then upon approval, a new certificate of incorporation reflecting the new name will be issued. Second is shift of registered office from Kolkata in West Bengal to Mumbai in Maharashtra. So this is a shift from one state to another. Under section 13 subsection 4, the procedure is first pass a special resolution, then secondly obtain confirmation from the central government, that is your regional director, then third publish notice in newspapers, and then 4 give notice to creditors and debenture holders, and then lastly 5 would be your to file with ROC of both West Bengal and Maharashtra. Then next change it wanted was change of objects clause to include real estate business. So here under section 13 subsection 1, alteration of objects clause requires first passing a special resolution and second filing form MGT 14 with the ROC within 30 days. So if Sunrise Limited is a listed company, it must additionally give an exit opportunity to dissenting shareholders who voted against the resolution. Okay, so now we'll see top 5 ICI traps on the basis of this lecture. The content that we have done in lecture 3, we'll take 5 traps. Okay, so please note it down. I'll do it very slow, but please note it down. So trap number 1 is full address and MOA. So the mistake that you do is that the full address of the registered office is stated in the MOA. This is wrong. The correction is that MOA states only the state. Full address is communicated to ROC within 30 days separately. Then trap number 2 is objects clause. You refer to the old structure normally. So mistake that you do is that writing the 1956 Act structure where main objects, incidental objects, other objects, everything was mentioned. Whereas the correct option would be that as per the Companies Act 2013, which is post 2015 amendment, there is just one objects clause. There are no subcategories. Then trap number 3 is shifting registered office, which approval is required. So the mistake the students make is that any change in registered office needs central government approval. However, the correct option is that central government through regional director approval only is required in case of interstate shift. Within same state, only special resolution is required, and within same city, only board resolution is required. Then trap number 4 is increase of authorized capital versus reduction of paid up capital. So the mistake that students make is that they confuse the procedure for both. Whereas the correct option would be that increase of authorized capital would mean your ordinary resolution plus form SH7. Whereas reduction of paid up capital would mean SR, that is your special resolution, plus NCLT approval under section 66. And then lastly, we have trap number 5, which is ultra vires and ratification. The mistake that students make is that a contract beyond the objects clause can be ratified by unanimous shareholder resolution. Whereas the correct statement would be that an ultra vires contract or ultra vires act is void. It cannot be ratified by anyone, not board, not shareholders, not even unanimous consent. This is absolute. Okay. सो अब लेक्चर 3 में जो हमने टॉपिक किए हैं, अब मैं इनके बेसिस पे थोड़ा सा आप लोगों को एग्जाम राइटिंग गाइडेंस दे देती हूँ. कुछ टिप्स हैं, लगभग 2-3 हैं, तो प्लीज इनका जरा ध्यान से इनको सुनिएगा. So tip number 1 for you is that alteration questions, in case of alteration questions, always state the clause and then the procedure. For example, don't just write special resolution is required. Write under section 13, then whatever the subsection is of the Companies Act 2013. For alteration of the, then mention the specific clause, and then you write the company is required to first pass a special resolution, second file form, whatever it is, with ROC within so and so days, then section number, form number, and then time limit. When you give all these things, you get full marks. Then tip number 2 is for advise the company questions, the questions that contain that advise the company. You have to deal with each change separately. So when a question asks about multiple changes, like we just did in question number 5 above, you have to deal with each change in a separate paragraph. You have to label them as A, B, C, because examiners marking such questions look for clarity of treatment. So mixing everything into one paragraph loses marks even if the content is correct. Remember that. Then tip number 3 is ultra wires questions. Always cite the Ashbury case. Remember this. So whenever an ultra wires questions comes, cite Ashbury Railway Carriage and Iron Company Limited versus Rish, case of 1875. Even one line, that as held in Ashbury Railway Carriage and Iron Company Limited versus Rish, that is 1875, an act beyond the objects clause is void and cannot be ratified. This case citation earns a dedicated marks in most question papers. Remember this. Okay. So friends, this is for that's it for lecture 3, मेमोरेंडम ऑफ एसोसिएशन. तो हमने आज कवर किया है एमओए का पर्पस, उसकी सुप्रीमेसी, 6 क्लॉजेस एक एक डिटेल में हमने देखे और हर क्लॉज का ऑल्टरेशन प्रोसीजर भी देखा. ये सब आपके चैप्टर 2 का कोर है. आप एक काम कीजिएंगे, अब इसके बाद आप एक काम करेंगे, आप सब लोग ब्लैंक पेपर पे लिखेंगे 6 क्लॉजेस के नाम, हर क्लॉज का ऑल्टरेशन प्रोसीजर और 3 सिनेरियोज फॉर रजिस्टर्ड ऑफिस चेंज. वो 3 सिनेरियोज क्या होंगे? सेम सिटी, सेम स्टेट, डिफरेंट स्टेट. वो याद नहीं रहे तो कल लेक्चर 4 में आप सब लोग कंफ्यूज हो जाओगे. Now lecture 4 covers articles of association in full, the binding nature, alteration, entrenchment, and then the doctrines of ultra vires. That is your complete treatment and doctrines of constructive notice. So अगर आपको ये लेक्चर हेल्पफुल लगा हो तो प्लीज लाइक दिस वीडियो और शेयर करो अपने CA इंटर बैचमेट्स के साथ. सब्सक्राइब करो ब्रेनाकुलर अकेडमी को so you never miss a lecture. See you in lecture 4. Take care. Bye bye.